2025 has barely begun, but we've already got a major flop on our hands in the guise of A Better Man. A movie which not only tanked in its opening weekend, but which plummeted in the all-important second weekend, thereby sealing the movie's fate. It was such a major flop, in fact, that hardly anyone even noticed, even though the few who did see it, for the most part, enjoyed it. So, how could what by all accounts is a very good movie flop this badly? Let's look into the Robbie Williams biopic, A Better Man, and find out what went wrong. Let's begin with establishing just how big a flop A Better Man is. The movie reportedly cost $110 million to make. It has opened in all major markets where it's been out for 2 to 3 weeks already, and in that time, it has only managed to gross a little more than $13 million worldwide. Of that, less than $2 million came from the US, and from the previous to this weekend, it dropped nearly 80%. That is not to say it's a bad movie, but it is to say that financially, it's a disaster. Exhibitor Relations put it best, saying on X, Paramount's A Better Man was an extinction-level event in its second weekend, dropping a whopping 76% with just $255,000, $1.8 million total. This will likely go down as the lowest-grossing wide studio release of 2025. So long, Robbie Williams, we hardly knew ya. And that, of course, is a big part of the problem right there. For those who haven't heard of him, Robbie Williams, not to be confused with Robin Williams, was a 90s Britpop star, at the time popular with predominantly teenage girls, and secondarily within the gay community. He started out in the boy band Take That, which also had some level of gay appeal, before going solo from the mid to late 90s and into the early aughts. Both as a member of Take That and as a solo artist, Robbie Williams dominated the charts and received a ton of airplay, especially in the UK and Europe. Like if MTV Europe did a countdown of the top 100 songs of all time in the early 90s, and the audience could vote, and Take That had just released a single, then all the tween girls would vote that in the top 3 songs of all time. I kid you not, that actually happened, and more than once. Drove me nuts each time, which is why I bring that example up. Because, full disclosure, with the exception of Love Supreme, I have never liked a single song that Robbie Williams ever released. But the massive 90s fame was not to last, for however much Robbie Williams may have charted at the time, both in a boy band and as a solo artist. How big a cultural footprint he left behind is debatable, or perhaps it would be more accurate to say how minuscule that footprint turned out to be with the passage of time. Consider, when the best of the 90s is remembered today, Robbie Williams is hardly on the top of the list, while Take That isn't even on it, period. The filtering process which enables the gems of movies, TV and music to rise to the top and be remembered, while everything else, however much it may have charted upon release, is gradually forgotten. And this filtering process did not go well for either Take That or Robbie Williams. Everyone who was there in the 90s will of course remember Robbie Williams, at least if you were in Europe. Otherwise, you might not even remember him if you were there in the 90s. And unlike some more timeless acts, his music and artistry arguably hasn't been discovered by ever new generations since he left the spotlight. Some other heartthrob instantly took over the place he had occupied in the music scene, and so the generations that came after he charted increasingly never heard about him. And with how this movie is performing, that is not likely to change. Let's look at the one creative decision that made sure of that. Robbie Williams always said he felt less evolved and different from other people, as someone always looked at sideways, as if not really belonging, a fraud that was about to be exposed at any moment. Feelings like that are not unusual. Some of you watching may even feel like that right now, because hundreds upon hundreds of millions of people around the world feel some variation of that, and it's completely normal. It shouldn't be, but it's a byproduct of the kind of society we live in, and it's not going to get any better. Still, while feeling the way Robbie Williams does is far from unique, they then made the creative decision to portray him as an ape throughout the movie, so everyone else can see what he always felt and how out of place he felt at any given time. And creatively, it may very well have been the right decision given that this is such a focal point of the movie, and that the few that have seen it responded so well to it. So do note, I'm not taking anything away from the movie here. Financially though, it most certainly was the wrong decision, because it not only bloated the budget, making the movie much more expensive than was either necessary or defensible. It also led to a marketing campaign that had many more confused than intrigued. And in this case, confused clearly did not translate to ticket sales. At that point, it honestly doesn't even matter how good or how bad the movie is in its own right, because no one bothered seeing it. The combo of Robbie Williams, who is no longer a star, and the ape in the marketing material, which certainly didn't pique anyone's interest, did this movie in. Or more accurately, it was blowing $100 million on a biopic about Robbie Williams in the first place, which did this movie in. Now, I'm all about biopics, and I want to see many more of them, and there are some that get and deserve the big budget treatment. Most, though, needs to be smaller scale because of the inherent niche appeal, and there's nothing wrong with that. Case in point, my personal favorite biopic isn't Walk the Line, and it isn't a complete unknown. No, it's the Austrian Falco biopic from 2008. Now, that obviously had some limited appeal, and therefore a limited, though quite sufficient budget. And that is what biopics probably should do. Adjust the budget to the expected audience appeal. Because it turns out that blowing millions and millions upon a CGI gimmick in a biopic for an artist that most audiences, certainly in the US, have never even heard about, isn't a fiscally responsible thing to do. Good thing then that the bill is split between multiple international distributors, so there is no one party that has to absorb a loss of more than $100 million. Unfortunately for Skydance though, Paramount is the US distributor and therefore likely paid the biggest cut, and stands to lose the most on this, because whatever they paid, they'll never see again. The studio that greenlit Star Trek Section 31 but cancelled the Frasier reboot just keeps on giving. Something that did hold up much better than the legacy of Robbie Williams though is Werner Herzog's Nosferatu remake from 1979. While you're here, be sure to check out our retrospective on it, and how it both deviated from the original and informed the Eggers movie. You'll find it right now on our new channel, Midnight's Edge Retrospectives and Classics. With that, let me know your thoughts on A Better Man and what other biopics you'd like to see in the comments.